Hi, I'm Des, and this is my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Lou Pearlman, or Louis P as I call him. Testing, testing. I'm so excited. I got this for Christmas. Hello, hello. Hi, I'm Des. Do you think this haircut makes me look like a middle-aged woman? Because I do. Today we're going to be talking about Lou Pearlman, and if you don't know who that is, you are lucky. I have spent over a week researching this man, and he is a terror. I don't like him. I will be upfront about that. So before we get into Lou, So before we get into talking about Lou, let's talk about the beauty of the world. If you're just here for Lou, though, please go ahead to the timestamps. My family's home. Hold on. We'll talk about Lou starting there. But right now I'm going to talk about my Christmas. So I am so excited. I did not get this for Christmas, but I did buy it for myself literally today. I was so excited. I was waiting for Christmas to see if anyone would buy it for me, and no one did. So I was like, perfect. I will get this myself. And I have no regrets. I'm really excited. So it comes with a lip gloss, a lipstick, a glitter gel, and a palette, an eyeshadow palette. I got the Elsa one as well as I got the Anna one. One thing I did get for Christmas, however, was my new lipstick. I am so excited. I also got a new friend, my co-host. He does not have a name, so he goes by Shark for now. So today we will be talking about Lou Pearlman. I don't like him. Lou was born June 19, 1954. And he would grow up to be the person who helped form Backstreet Boys and N'sync. He would be their manager as well as their sixth band member. We'll get into that. He was a con man, and I don't like him. I can't stress that enough. I wouldn't have known about him, however, until the boy band con showed up on my YouTube feed and I took a look. And then I went even deeper into research because I grew up around the time of Backstreet Boys and N'sync. I was a kid that was younger than 10 at the time, and so I couldn't tell the two apart, but I knew that there was a feud going on between them, and I saw them everywhere. I heard their music. I'll still bop to their music. So I was obviously interested enough to click the video and watch it, and be interested enough to now make my own video about it. So what makes Lou so interesting was because I think he was always a con artist, to be honest. So he tells a lot of stories in his own memoir, and even in the boy band con, members of the boy bands will explain, like, he would tell this story, and they're debunked. Like, people from that time period have said that didn't happen. But one of the stories that Alan Gross, his friend growing up, does mention, which I personally believe, because it sounds like something I personally think Lou Pearlman would do, which is take guitar lessons for $5 and then practice, but also teach the kids and get paid $5 in turn for it. He's making his coin, you know, he's doing his thing as a young kid, but he also tells a story about how he would watch, and I'm not sure if it's airplanes or blimps, but he would watch it outside his window, and that's kind of what inspired him to want to go into the blimp business later on in life. Alan will take you to the window and be like, this is the window Lou is talking about. It's obviously actually his window. He mentions on Lou's side of the building, you can't even see it. And then I think it's in the boy band con, he mentions how much Lou took of his story and used it as his own. But the boys did grow up together, and they were friends, and they shared this love, and they also idolized Theodore Wollenkemper. I apologize if I didn't say that correctly, but one of the other stories about Lou is that when he was 21 and he heard Wollenkemper was coming to the United States, he made a 2-foot tall card for him and invited him to dinner, and Theodore actually agreed. So Lou picks him up in his helicopter, again, later in the video, and he ends up taking him to his apartment where his mom cooks him dinner. So, take that story how you will. I took it a certain way. So, let's get into how Lou has a helicopter at 21, and it really begins with him going to Queens College. He earns a business bachelor's degree, and he persuaded some Wall Street people to buy a helicopter, which he would then lease out, and the man that we knew as Lou P is sort of born. And this sort of venture helps fund what would later become as Airship Enterprise International, which, if you've seen the documentary or know anything, this is kind of the infamous blimp story with Jordache Jeans, which is the first initial person to pay to have. So, okay, regardless, advertising, side of the blimp, they want it in gold. Lou, in the sun, it ends up getting brown. Lou's still trying to fly it. They keep slapping more gold paint. It's not going anywhere. But it ended up crashing. It never got to the party that it was supposed to be at. And Lou actually got a $2.5 million settlement from that. And that is really where I feel things really blossomed. Because at this point, in my mind, he's already successfully conned a few things. Because this is not verified, but there were rumblings about the fact that the blimp was never really meant to fly. It was really meant for the settlement, because the blimp was only a few $100,000, and it never passed any of the restrictions or the required flight duration testing to actually be approved. So there was grumblings about already that. So Lou ends up taking the $2.5 million settlement. Around this time, a lot of things happen. His mom dies in the late 1980s, as well as New Kids on the Block. There's a story that he comes, they lease one of the planes that he's doing, because he's doing planes as well at this time. There's a lot of things he's doing, okay? And none of it is really legitimate, to be honest. But basically, New Kids on the Block leases a jet. He finds out this band's making $100 million. He's like, I want in on this action. And he also, in the 1990s, is doing this ESA with his, I don't know if this is when he started Transcontinental. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on at this time. And ESA started in 1990, which is the Employment Retirement Investment Savings Account, which doesn't actually exist. It's not actually a thing. What does exist is the ERISA, which I did not write down what that acronym means. But basically, that's a legitimate thing. It's nothing like Lou promised people, but some have speculated that the name similarity is what he kind of was like, ooh, this is close enough so that I can continue to get away with this con. So in 1992, while this is sort of going on, the blimps are still happening, as well as Transcontinental Airlines, another business, is booming. That's where we get into it in 1992 when he places an ad in the Orlando Sentinel. And he holds auditions in his gondola hangar. And this is actually where the boys would later rehearse. And they describe it in the documentary as being really hot, really gross. I feel so bad. They worked hard for that money. Unfortunately, they didn't see a lot of it. So in 1993, the Backstreet Boys were created. They really went into the European circuit. You can get into that in all the articles and everything. He says their name was inspired by the Backstreet flea markets of Orlando, but I don't know. So in 1990, 2008 is when trouble begins brewing. And at this point, Lou's blimps are done because 3 crashed, and the last one that he did have ended up expiring in 1995. So he's like, we're good. I've got these boy bands that were making money. So turns out his investors at the time as well saw this as like, oh, he's making money with the boy bands. It's okay. We can let this go. Like I mentioned, 1998 is when trouble begins brewing because the Backstreet Boys sue in May. And then NSYNC ends up turning against Lou in October of 1999. And this is all after a check presentation when they were like, things aren't adding up. And in 2002, Lou begins working on the band. So even after Backstreet Boys have sued Lou and NSYNC has sued Lou, he's still making bands. C-Note, Innocence, LFO, Take 5. So in 2002, he's working on Making the Band, which is an MTV show that actually follows the making of the band O-Town, which, yes.
You singers out there, Lou Pearlman, the mastermind behind such bands as LFO, NSYNC, and the Backstreet Boys, is looking for 5 talented young men to form a new band.
Which, yes, I did watch a few of the clips on YouTube. So it was really interesting because even in the documentary, a member of O-Town, Ashley, mentions Lou was being investigated while this was all going on. Like, it was very open. It was very like, this is what's happening. And then to add, you know, a cherry to this giant pile of filth that we've got going on, sexual allegations sort of began coming out. And it really wasn't, as far in my research that I found, wasn't put out there until the Vanity Fair article in 2007, but there were rumblings back in the 1990s. And so there is no definitive proof as far as like, read the articles. So Rich Cronin, who was part of LFO, did a Howard Stern interview, and it's actually on YouTube, and I did listen to the whole thing, and he did say a lot, so it is very explicit, just so you know. A lot of what he said was reiterated by actual other people that have spoken out. So in 1997 and 98, the inappropriate, like I had mentioned, is sort of the time frame that it began to surface. So another person who spoke out against this is Tom Christopher.
It's actually Tim Christopher.
Tom Christophon? I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. I apologize. He was a member of Take 5, but there were several stories that he shares in the Mad About the Boys Vanity Fair 2007 article. And he describes Lou wrestling with the boys in bed in only a towel, about being shown security footage of the Innocence girls sunbathing with no clothes. And even his mother went on to quote, Lou played this game of trying to alienate the parents, which is a known tactic with grooming. So another person that ended up speaking out was Steve Mooney. Now, Lou would ask some of the boys that wanted to be in bands to be the driver, to be his personal assistant, to work for him, and then eventually prove themselves so they can be in the band. Steve Mooney was one of them, and he's also one of the people that spoke out against him. And he mentions wanting to be a singer in O-Town. He describes Lou as being a creepy friend who's always touching you. And things came to a moment for Mooney when he asked what he needed to do to be in the band. And Pearlman, in just a robe, spreads his legs and tells him that he's a smart boy and to figure it out. So, there are additional stories in relation to the allegations. Those can be found on the interwebs if you'd like to go find them for yourselves. Jane Carter, Nick Carter's mother, who was part of the Backstreet Boys, even mentions that certain things happened. So there are, you know, some things out there that I am not mentioning in this video. Feel free to do some research. I've provided some links. Lou's done some sketchy stuff, but his downfall really isn't until the 2000s. He acquires kind of a sketchy business in 2002, which is Options Talent, and they are a talent agency that really doesn't do much. Like, you pay them and they don't really offer much else. They say that they'll get your name out there and get you gigs and such, but they really don't do anything. And around this time, Dr. Joseph Chow, one of Pearlman's investors, ends up dying, and his family is trying to understand the investments that Dr. Chow had in the Transcontinental. And Pearlman pushes the family off. He tries to settle with them. He then sues them. And they're like, this is really strange. They hire an attorney, and that's when things start to unravel, because this attorney ends up finding out that Cohen and Siegel, which is a company that basically Lou made up to help con people, is it doesn't exist. And when he calls them, it's actually a secretarial firm that's just hired to take these phone calls. And, you know, his childhood friend, Frankie Vasquez Jr., ends up committing suicide November 11, 2006. That ended up being because he ends up trying to take out some money with Lou, and Lou is not able to deliver, and he begins to understand that things are just starting to fall apart at this point. Lou doesn't have money, and then Lou eventually goes on the run. He does try to transfer $250,000 from a New York bank account to a German bank, but they managed to freeze that transfer. He isn't found until June 2007 when he is in Bali. And on the 9th, a person, Thorsten Iborg, ends up checking into this nice 5-star hotel. On the 14th, he's over here snapping photos. He emails a reporter because he's like, I think this guy is a fugitive. And she in turn reports it to the FBI, and they go and arrest the guy. Again, details in the Boy Band Con, in the podcast articles. And this man had the audacity to sign in his name, A. Incognito Johnson. Really? And he was ended up being sentenced to 25 years. He died in jail at the age of 62. And to be honest, I'm personally thankful that he was not able to hurt more people, because aside from all that awful stuff he did, he also took a lot of older people's money that was all the money they, you know, that was their life savings, and he took it from them. Those, you know, while he was in Florida. So I just don't think he would have been a person who could have been rehabilitated. It seems like he started early in life. He was very greedy. Nothing would have ever been enough for him. But I didn't know him personally, so I can't say for certain. The neighbors that he did have said that there was really nothing ever too sketchy about him that they thought, except when a gardener one time mentioned to them that if they have a little son, don't let him go to the house. Bad things happen there. So yeah, Lou, after doing all this research, sounds like a giant asshole. And I don't think he's the only one in Hollywood. I have been doing some very fascinating research on all of this, as far as just reading a lot of articles, watching a lot of different sort of like documentaries and things. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful night. Have a happy new year. I can't wait to see you in 2020. And thank you so much for spending time with me and Shark. Have a good night. Bye.